human. Play, Damjat, human.
Hello again, my lovelies. I hope you're ready for another Pirate Scum Gaming build review, as I am excited to bring this one to you. This is a build I've been meaning to cover for a while now. This is my Drainer build, also known as Beware the Banshee, for reasons which become evident soon enough. This utilizes the T6 Nebula, the Fleet variant, also known as the Sutherland. It also utilizes the console from the T5 variant. This is a very, very powerful drain platform. Both consoles combined do a very, very powerful drain effect, which I will demonstrate in the ISE coming up. I will also show it off at the end of the build portion as well, just so you can see what it does. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the build. Alright, first up we have the Quantum Phase Torpedo. This one comes from the Sunrise mission. This is a very powerful drain weapon. It is part of a three-piece known as Quantum Destabilizing Beam, which let me go ahead and show you what that does. Alright, what makes this torpedo so powerful for a drain boat is the fact that it knocks shields offline, and it knocks a lot of shields offline. Almost 11k minus almost 11k all shields in a 2-kilometer radius. But when you're using a torpedo attack like high yield or torpedo spread, which I highly recommend torpedo spread by the way, the radius increases to 4 kilometers. And spread deals additional shield damage. Alright, here we go. The Quantum Destabilizing Beam 3-piece. It deals a good deal of phaser damage, but it also strips power levels from the enemy and gives that to you. It also gives a bit of firing cycle haste for energy weapons, which is nice for my Saboteur's Beam and my Quantum Phase Beam. Next up is the Neutronic Torpedo. This one deals a significant amount of power system drain. It is from the Delta Reputation. And you fire this one under spread to hit as many targets as possible at all subsystem drain, power drain. This is another very, very powerful torpedo weapon for a drain build. Next up is the Quantum Phase Beam Array. This is also from the Sunrise mission. Like I said, it's part of the 3-piece. And the nice thing about this one, 5% chance with weapons to target minus 15,781 all shields. And also 2.5% chance, one random subsystem offline for 5 seconds. Then you get another 2.5% chance to drain almost 33,000 shields from the enemy and restores your own. Beginning to get the picture why I call this the Banshee? If you didn't know anything about Banshees, the scream of the Banshee is known to suck the life out of someone and nourish them. Next up is the Bajoran Deflector. This is a freebie item from the Scylla and Charybdis mission. This particular deflector has the highest drain expertise value of all science deflectors at 85. Deteriorating Secondary Deflector. This comes from the Trundor Colony Fleet Holding. I'm using this because it has the projectile weapon damage proc, as well as you want to use a Deteriorating Secondary Deflector because of its powerful radiation damage, which is procced by Charged Particle Burst. It will deal a significant amount of radiation damage and DPS. Next up is the prevailing bolstered impulse engine. My tongue stops working. This is from the competitive rep. This is the science variant. I use it for the flight speed buff, the flight turn rate buff, a little bit of defense rating, as well as the 10% increased recharge speed on science bridge officer abilities. I know a lot of people say, use the tactical one, but I'm not using that many tactical abilities on this ship. I'm using more science abilities. Next up is the Delta Alliance Trajector Warp Core, and if you didn't already guess, this comes from the Delta reputation. We are using this for the Drain expertise, as well as the Trajector Jump. You get about 21 Drain expertise, and that Trajector Jump is a great oh shit button if you're taking a lot of damage and you need to get out of the way to try to heal. Oops, get to highlight the right thing here. It's also good to help getting across the map, going from the left side to the right side. Next one, Temporal Defense Initiative Regenerative Shield, and if you didn't already guess, it's from the Temporal reputation. We are using this for its Drain expertise. It gives you almost 32. Aft weapons, we have the Saboteur's Disruptor Beam Array. This is from the lobby store. This is kind of a sleeper set, if you ask me. Not a lot of people realize this is there or that it's actually good for Drain. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Here we go. Krieger Wave Thermal Reservoir. At 10 stacks, increase all subsystem power levels by 10 for 10 seconds. This helps keep that auxiliary power nice and high. When firing energy weapons, 2.5% chance, doing some physical damage, but when firing projectile weapons, you do this one. Again, chance to zap, make shields go bye-bye. And you get 5% chance plus 30 drain and control expertise for 12 seconds, which is very, very nice. Next up, you have your Saboteur Vehicle Delivery Vehicle Photon Torpedo. This one is the second piece of the Saboteur's Gambit 2-piece set. And here's why we're using this. The torpedo acts as a breaching mechanism, allowing for the lone saboteur to infiltrate the enemy ship and attempt to shut down a nearby subsystem before being beamed back to safety. Starfleet Intelligence and Section 31 hard at work here, folks. Alright, next up is the new Karl Webmine Launcher. This is a great thing to have. This is a disable thing. It will ensnare the target with a small mini Tholian web, and it will cause power levels to drop. This is a great mine layer for my tongue stops working here for a second. For drain builds, and because it's part of a two-piece. Shocking. Here's that two-piece, the energy amplification. A bit of Tetrion damage, a bit of anti-proton damage, but we're using it for the additional 19 drain expertise. For devices, we have the deuterium surplus. I've already covered on previous build videos how to get this and where to get it, so I'm not really going to go into that much detail about it. Basically, this is a good way to get around the map. Our reactive armor catalyst, this comes from the Broken Circle mission. Once unlocked, you can craft as many of these as you want in your engineering R&D. This is a great oh shit button. This helps keep you alive because science ships are notoriously squishy. Exotic Particle Flood, this comes from level 10 of your Science R&D. And as a Science Captain, Science R&D should be the first R&D you get to level 15, because you need that trait and you need this. And again, Auxiliary Battery Large, this helps keep your auxiliary power levels nice and high to fuel all those nifty science abilities. Alright, next we have the Restorative Particle Focuser. You get this from the Research Lab in the Delta Quadrant. And for obvious reasons, you see why I use this. And I'm running 6 of these things, so you do the math. Next up is the Tachyon Particle Field Emitter. This is the console from the T6 Nebula. you want to read that, go ahead and pause here. Alright, moving on. Its passive abilities give you shield regeneration and drain expertise. This helps with the set. And of course, more drain expertise. I must have more things that suck the enemy. That didn't come out right. Anyway, moving on. Tachyon Particle Field. This is the active ability. Go ahead and pause here if you'd like to read that. And here's what it does. Affects anything alive. Technically, the Borg are alive. 2 foes, minus about 7.9 all shields every 1 second while this is up. 2 foes, minus 30% shield resistance while this is up. 2 allies. 2.2k shield regeneration every 1 second while this is active. 2 allies, 30% shield resistance while this is active. After 10 seconds, when this ability collapses, 2 foes, minus almost 32k all shields, and minus 30% shield resistance rating. To your friends, almost about 4.5 shield regeneration and 30% shield resistance for 10 seconds. And here's the 2-piece with the console from the T5. You get a whopping additional 38 Starship Drain expertise. That is why I say the Nebula is the monster drainer. This is the ship you should be flying if you want to do a drain build. Alright, next up is the console from the T5, the Tachyon Detection Grid. This is a throwback to the Next Gen Klingon Civil War episode. See what I mean? Its active and passive abilities are not that great, but it's part of the 2-piece, which is why we use it. And the fact that the active ability kind of amuses me when it goes off. Next up is a Conductive RCS Accelerator with the Drain X mod. I'm using this to get this ship to turn a little bit better because this ship turns like a cruiser would, nice and slow. And since I'm not using Bioneuron Fusion Circuits or Tachyokinetic Converter, I'm using this, and why not buff my drain along the way. Karl Particle Converter. This is from the new Karl reputation and part of that energy amplification 2-piece I talked about earlier. And as you can see, it adds Exotic Particle Generator and Starship Drain expertise, which is why we use it. Next up are more of these consoles from the Fleet Research Lab. Again, these speak for themselves. I don't need to go into much detail about this. They stack, you do the math. Next up is Opening Salvo. This is from the T6 Titan. This is a monster console. I love it. This was a huge boon to the drain community. Its passives are pretty good. Exotic Particle Generator and Starship Weapon Specialization. But it's the active which makes this such a deadly console. Opening Salvo. Fires 4 salvos up to 5 targets. Bit of kinetic damage, however, it's this other part that gets the drain community just drooling. Knock target subsystems offline for almost 28 seconds. That is an eternity in an ISE run. Activating an exotic damage ability grants 4% firing cycle haste for energy weapons, and I am using those. That's also nice. So yeah, basically when you shoot this off, it hits the target, puts them to sleep. No power, no shields, no nothing. They are harmless. It is tickle torture at that point. That's when your DPSers can go in and just mop it up. And last but certainly not least is the console from the Quantum Phase weapon set available in the Sunrise mission. Again, Starship Shield you're using it for the Starship Drain expertise. You get a good amount of that at about 39. Bit of auxiliary power setting, which is also good. as well as phaser damage to help buff that quantum phase beam array. Alright, so let's look at some stats here. These stats are not what you should be looking at on a science ship. You're not looking to do a whole lot of DPS with this. It's in here. This is where your damage comes from. This is resting, sitting in system space, no abilities activated, 903 drain. And I hope you're beginning to see why this particular drain build is so effective. When I buff up, that goes well over 1,000. Yeah, this thing is excellent at what it does. This build destroys shields, knocks power levels offline, knocks weapon systems offline. It puts the enemy to sleep. It makes them harmless. It turns whatever they're going to try to do to you into featherbed tickle torture. Thus, why the ship is called the Banshee. It just sucks the ever-loving life out of the enemy. Skills, pretty much science heavy here. A little bit of tactical buffing as well as engineering. Specializations temporal for obvious reasons. Science should be using temporal because of entropic rider, as well as anomaly leash, which allows your anomalies to float around. And strategist, I use this because of counteroffensive, layered defense, diversionary tactics, which helps draw threat off of me, as well as maneuver and attrition warfare. Onward to traits. We have Conservation of Energy. Gain 10% bonus damage on exotic damage powers when struck by energy damage, stacks up to 3 times. Cyclical power capacitors. This is an exchange item. When you use Energy Drain or Shield Drain Bridge Officer abilities, which I do use, gain 10 Drain expertise for 30 seconds. That 30 seconds is a long time in an ISE. Enlightened, pretty self-explanatory. Also from the exchange, Neutronic Transferal. Yeah, it's an exchange trait. This is what makes us drainers moist. It's turns your sub-nuke into a power steal. 2 for 1 bang. Not only are you debuffing the ever-loving life out of the enemy, you're taking power along the way. Unconventional systems. Everyone should be running this. This helps with universal console cooldown. This is a must for any build, especially science builds. Particle manipulator. I talked about this earlier. This is what you get from level 15 in your science R&D. As a science captain, you should be prioritizing your science R&D just so you can unlock this. Superior astrophysicist. Everyone, science captains come with standard astrophysicist, and you can unlock the superior version at your K-13 fleet holding. Inspirational leader from the exchange. This buffs your bridge officer ability, grants 10 to most starship skills. Intelligence agent attaché, again for captain ability cooldown. And for science captains, this helps get some really good abilities off cooldown very quickly. The Boimler effect. This is for cooldown management. This is the new kid on the block. It's from the Lobby store. Starship traits. I'm using Improved Photonic Officer from the Iktomi Science Vessel. From the Lobby store, this is helping my Photonic Officer duration. That way it helps with ability cooldown reduction. Tachyon Dispersal. This is the trait from the T6 Nebula. Pretty self-explanatory. Spore-infused anomalies from the Somerville. Reverberation. This comes from the Amari. And surprisingly, it does quite well on a drain build. Because it has a chance to knock shields offline. And as a drain build, that's exactly what you're trying to do. Thus why I use it. Improved Tachyon Beam. This comes from the Geneva-class Science Command Cruiser. This helps buff up Tachyon Beam. As you can see, plus about 14k shield regeneration on first pulse of Tachyon Beams up to 20 allies within 10 kilometers. And then Electrified Anomalies. Fortunately, my mind is drawing a blank on this one. You have to check out the Stowe Wiki to see which ship this comes off of. And if you haven't checked out the Stowe Wiki, what are you waiting for? Great source for information. Next up is my space reputations. I have Chronocapacitor Array, which helps with Bridge Officer cooldown reduction. That's from Temporal Rep. This is from the Gamma Rep, Enhanced Sensors. When activating a Captain ability, plus 15% control and drain ability effectiveness. This is great for those opening spikes. Piezo Electric Weapon Amplification from the Lucari Rep. This does a significant amount of AoE shield drain, and it does a nice amount of DPS. Controlled Countermeasures. This is also from the Temporal Rep. Bonus energy weapon and projectile damage on controlled targets, and believe me, in ISE there's plenty of controlled targets, because you'll have a controller on the team with his gravity well holding enemies still. And hull repairing nanites, because science ships are notoriously squishy. A little extra help can't hurt you. But you have your active abilities here. There's no right or wrong choices to use. I like using the Refracting Tetrion Cascade on when I'm in a group of targets to debuff their shields. Alright, let's look at Bridge Officer Stations. Alright, first off, we have Structural Analysis for the Damage Resistance Rating debuff. Energy Siphon. This is a good way to buff your own power levels from stealing power from enemies. This is affected by several of the traits I use. We have Photonic Officer. Improved Photonic Officer helps this with Bridge Officer ability reduction. Fire at Will 1 helps get around the damage from the Quantum Phase Beam Array and the Saboteur's Beam. Torpedo Spread 2, same principle, different weapons. Emergency Powered Engines helps you get around. Shared Fate. This is a shield drain temporal ability, and it also debuffs shield resistance. The Chronometric Conversion Field. This deals a significant amount of physical damage, and also debuffs flight speed and all damage. So it's good. This is a good way to slow down those spheres from getting around. Next up, Hazard Emitters helps cleanse the Borg Plasma Fire, and it's a good hull heal. Because, like I said, science ships are notoriously squishy, so every little bit helps. Charged Particle Burst to help proc my secondary deflector's radiation damage. Tachyon Beam 3 for the sheer power stripping of the shields. Titan's Rift. This is the gravity well for drainers. This is a excellent power level debuff, and it also deals a significant amount of kinetic damage. And last but certainly not least, we have Tractor Beam, which helps proc my unconventional systems. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at your duty officers here. As I said before, the duty officers are the unsung heroes of any build. First up, we have Mokimbro. He is my shield distribution officer. Chance to disable nearest shield facing with Tachyon Beam. Oh yeah. Shields? What shields? Have Law, my projectile weapon officer. You get him free from the Nimbus arc. Chance to reduce the recharge time for torpedoes. Helps get my Saboteur's torpedo, my Neutronic torpedo, and my Quantum Phase torpedo firing more often. Next up, Gordak, my deflector officer. Chance to reduce the recharge time for deflector abilities, meaning charge particle burst. Means I can get that off more often. Mariah Mar. Chance to create an aftershock Titan's Rift. Basically, it has a chance to spawn extra little Titan's Rift around your main one. Get that power steal around, you know what I mean? Research Lab Scientist. Sepsepsy. Chance to placate when using Charged Particle Burst. That way, if you use Charged Particle Burst, you have a chance to make sure the enemy doesn't attack you back. And a different one, we have a civilian here, Orotha Verna. Team abilities grant a chance to drain attacker's weapon power. Pretty cool, huh? Alright, let's do some beauty shots of this, but first, let me say, if by now you're not getting serious Spaceball vibes here, and you know the scene I'm talking about, and I'm pretty sure about 99% of you have seen this. Dark Helmet, Captain Sanders, Colonel Sanders, and President's group are on the bridge of Megamaid. They're at Druidia. Megamaid has turned the vacuum on. Suck, 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 suck. Yeah, that's the vibe you get from this ship. So let's do some beauty shots here. Alright, that covers it for the build explanation. Sit tight, ISE is coming right up. Okay, let's take a look at that parse. I am at James Bryce. My friend Vesti here, member of my ISC team for this run. Yeah, Mikey, who's a good friend of mine and a content creator, was tanking this run. We have at Stu1701, who is putting out a Science Basics video in the next couple of days, so keep an eye out for that. He's also a good friend and a content creator and captain of the Lazy Boat. As you can see, the all-turret Lazy Boat did really good. So yeah, it's a really cool build. You should take a look at that. It's crazy. That's all I can really say about it. It's a crazy, crazy build, and I absolutely love it. And I got Ed Horseshoe Kids, my friend Nightmare. He was the DPSing for me on this run. Alright, as you can see, my DPS is it's okay. However, that's not what I'm focusing on here. I'm not focusing on the raw DPS number. I am looking at my actual shield damage, because that's what you look for when you're running a drain boat. It's shield damage. It's not calculated the same way as raw DPS. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oh, and by the way, Mikey did another outstanding tanking job. Good job, buddy. 84% damage in, 91% attacks in. He is a hell of a tank captain, and I am proud to call him my student. Alright. Here we go. Okay. Shield damage. Almost 7.8 million shield damage with this build. That is where you want to see it. Because that is exactly what this build is designed to do. Destroy enemy shields, drain them, drain power levels, drain power from the weapons, shut them down, make them harmless, turn whatever they're going to do to you into tickle torture. Look at some other numbers here. Max 1 hit. Yeah, we also have target debuff, that's pretty decent, almost 174. So let's go look at some of these shield draining damage abilities, huh? Alright, first up we have Quantum Phase Transfer, and we talked about this is that 3-piece from the Sunrise mission. This did 21k DPS and overall 3.4 million shield damage. Deteriorating Secondary Deflector. This is that one from the colony that I mentioned. This did almost 20k DPS and pumped out almost 583k shield damage. Here's the Quantum Phase Torpedo under Spread and Salvo, because I stole someone's Concentrate Firepower charge. My bad. Yep, see it. There it is. This did about 8.9k DPS and it didn't do as much shield damage as I would have hoped. But I do know it doesn't do shield damage. It strips shields and it hands it back to you. That's all I can really give it. Okay, here's my Neutronic. See, Neutronic got a Concentrate Firepower charge too. Neutronic Torpedo doing about 62k shield damage and about 960. Where is it? Almost 6k DPS. Almost 6 million DPS. Titan's Rift. Power Siphon. 3.5 million DPS. That was a good one. It was doing just about the same as Shared Fate here. Spore Fused Anomalies also hit pretty hard. Again, Quantum Destabilizing Beam. This Quantum Phase Transfer and the Quantum Destabilizing Beam and the Quantum Phase Torpedo, these all work in harmony. Tachyon Particle Field, this is from the console from the T6 Nebula. It's also did a fairly decent amount of shield damage. Tachyon Particle Field, this is also from excuse me, this is that. I got a sneeze here, pardon. Tachyon Particle Field Collapse, this is also from the T6 Nebula console. They did just about, this one did slightly better than this. Drain Infection. This is a skill tree item. Tachyon Beam 3. Not as good as I would have hoped, but I'll take it. Piezoelectric Weapon Amplification. This is that personal space trait. This did pretty good. Here's my Saboteur's Disruptor. Refractoring Tetrion Cascade. As you can see, this build really this build is doing exactly what it's designed to do. And although it doesn't show on the overall DPS, it shows when you look at your player combat analysis. Go ahead and take a look at some pets. Chronometric Inversion Field shows up under pets. It did very good DPS. So, I mean, overall, I would definitely recommend someone trying a Drain build. Yes, they are a niche build and only good in under certain circumstances, but when they do apply, like an ISE, an HSE, a Corfez, I mean, those are the ones where they shine. That is where you can really do the most damage, and it really does good in HSE. I think the ISE was good. I may record an HSC in the near future running with my science boat, with my drainer here, and then doing a Parse exam so you can see exactly how good it does. So, that's the Drain Beware the Banshee build. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear your comments and complaints, your experiences with this build in the comments section below. I highly encourage discussion, so I'd like to hear what you guys think about this. So until then, remember, don't go by the book, think like a pirate, and I'll see you around.
Like all Starfleet, you talk and you talk, but you have no gramba.